Let's talk about some of your success stories, and then we have more questions we'll answer for lots of people, especially about mold. Okay. Okay. So talk about some of your success stories.
So probably I have several, of course. One of my favorites is the patient with Crohn's disease who is only 25 years old, and she got restricted down to a broth and yogurt diet only. Mm-hmm. She'd been through everything. I mean, we treated her with naltrexone and glutamine and aloe and marshmallow root and aged garlic extract and multiple Myers cocktails. And she'd been on colostrum, and then we switched her over to the SBI Protect, and we balanced her hormones. She was in quite a regimen of intestinal barrier repair attempts. And she had very little response to that. We were not the first provider she'd seen either, so she had quite a bit. And we put her, at this point, she had gone to GI and was on high-dose steroids, probably 75 milligrams a day of steroids at 25 years old. So she's already risking osteoporosis and tendon destruction, that sort of thing. So it's pretty sad. So anyway, she comes to us with that history, and we put her on BPC 157, started her at 1,500 a day, capsule form. And over about 6 weeks, she began to be able to withdraw her steroids. So we dropped her down to 500 milligrams of the BPC 157 every day. And this is a patient I just treated with BPC because clearly she has multiple allergies, multiple chemical sensitivities. So I just put her on BPC 157 alone. We did that for about 6 weeks. We dropped her down to 500 from 1,500, and she's been able to almost completely come off. I think she's now on 2 milligrams of prednisone. We're slowly weaning her down with the approval of her gastroenterologist, who's of course aghast at what we're able to accomplish. And it's been great. So we're real excited with her. She's been able to add more foods back to her diet. So her first one she added back was broccoli. So she's getting that prebiotic fiber, and she's doing much better now. She's significantly improved. We started her in January. So we're now in September, and she's down to about 2 milligrams from 75 milligrams of steroids.
Interesting. You know what I found increases mucosal barrier production? It's very counterintuitive.
What's that?
Betaine hydrochloride, hydrochloric acid. By lowering the pH of the gut starts to produce more mucus to protect the lining of the gut. And the reason I think that's interesting is because I've been looking at gut problems for a long time now. Because I even think obstructive sleep apnea starts in the gut, and then the esophagus becomes inflamed and the windpipe becomes narrowed, and boom. But I think that a lot of the problems we have today, I've even found certain artificial sweeteners that will raise the pH of the gut, therefore lowering the acidity of the gut. I have a feeling that we do things in today's society, maybe chemicals that are in our food, that almost act like proton pump inhibitors.
Right.
And so they shut down the hydrochloric acid. The hydrochloric acid in your stomach is the gatekeeper of keeping microbes from getting into the small intestine and taking seed. Exactly. So the pH changes in the gut, the opportunistic microbes start to build homes in the small intestine, and they happen to also have an interesting characteristic. That is, they turn proton pumps off to protect their environment. They turn the acid in the gut down, and slowly the mucosal barrier starts to just disappear. When you introduce, and you have to do this in between meals, people are like, no. An hour after a meal, see what you can tolerate. 1,800 milligrams, 3,000 milligrams, whatever. Maybe it's only 1,000. Take some betaine hydrochloride, not a lot of water, just a little bit of water, and just watch what happens. If you're one of these people who belches for hours after the meal, you'll stop belching as soon as you take that, because the undigested food that's just hanging around will become digested, and motility will kick in, and it'll move along. But when you do that, you'll also find that the mucosal barrier of your stomach starts upregulating. And I think that's counterintuitive. It's so interesting.
Or you could eat smaller meals.
Yeah. Or even vinegar probably works as well, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I can't eat a small meal. I don't. It's just not in my vocabulary.
I think that's one of the things we do in our society too, is eating larger meals that makes
yes.
this problem.
Yeah, we just push too much down. Okay. What other interesting? So how about? Have you worked with anybody with fibromyalgia? That's a big thing for women today.
So with fibromyalgia is sort of a different process, and you're still talking about this inflammasome, this inflammatory problem, and talking about the signaling to the brain. So when you're talking about that kind of patient, I might even go use something like pentosan polysulfate. But again, I'm always with these patients going to start using something either TB4 or TA1 or BPC157. I'm either going to start with one of those because I want that inflammatory process to calm down. And then I'm going to move on to using something in that case like pentosan polysulfate to get them to decrease their pain receptors going to their brain. In those cases, there's actually some interesting research on using AOD in pain control. And so you may be able to get away with doing 3 or 4 doses a day of AOD in those patients instead of using pentosan to get their pain under control.